Imagine being called a living saint, only to be cursed as a monster by nightfall. Imagine watching your name dissolve in the mouths of the same people who once bowed in your presence. Imagine raising a child with tenderness and care, knowing the world thinks he's yours, and knowing deep in your bones that he isn't. Would you plead your innocence? Would you shout back, claw your way to justice? One man didn't. He only said, "Is that so?" This is the story of Zen Master Hakuin. And what happened when silence became his answer to the storm? Once, nestled deep in the green folds of Japan's quiet mountains, there stood a small temple, humble, weathered, not much more than timber and paper and the faint scent of incense caught in the walls. Its roof sagged in places. The garden was spare, a rake, a few stones, a single plum tree. But for those who came to it, it was a sacred place, not because of rituals or relics, not because of what was taught, but because of what was felt, a stillness, a softness, as if the very air inside whispered, "You're already enough." And within it lived Hakuin. He lived simply, rose early, swept the garden in wide meditative strokes, sat beneath the plum tree in silence, drank tea without hurry. He didn't call himself a teacher. He didn't gather students. He didn't seek reverence. Yet still people came. From far towns, narrow paths, across rivers and fields, nobles and peasants, young and old, drawn not by charisma but by quiet, drawn by the way he was. He spoke rarely, and when he did, his words seemed to ripple outward like a stone dropped into still water, calm, heavy with something unnameable, something true. To the villagers, he was unshakable, untouchable, a man beyond the reach of the world's claws. But even stillness can be pierced. It was spring. The cherry blossoms fell like snow across the narrow paths, and in the house beside the temple, a storm was brewing. The neighbour's daughter, 16, soft-spoken, the kind who never raised her gaze unless asked, was found to be pregnant. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was shock, then shame, then rage. Her father paced in tight circles, voice rising in fury. Her mother knelt beside her, face streaked with tears. "Who?" her father cried. "Who did this to you?" The girl sat motionless, her eyes lowered, her hands clutched in her lap, trembling. "Please," her mother whispered. "Please tell us." But she said nothing, not out of defiance, out of fear. Fear of the boy, fear of her father, fear of the shame that would crush them all. And so, in a voice so thin it barely existed, she whispered a name, Hakuin. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't planned. It was survival. The first name that floated up through her panic and landed on her tongue. The silence that followed was worse than screaming. Her father stared. Her mother froze. And then, doors flung open, they ran. And the village, drawn by the scent of scandal, followed. They found him outside, sweeping the sand in the garden. Line after line, slow and deliberate. Not as a chore, but as a prayer. He paused only to gently realign a stone. "You!" the father roared. "You defiled our daughter!" Hakuin looked up, his hands still resting on the broom. He didn't flinch, didn't speak. "You hide behind silence like a coward. You've shamed her, shamed us all." The mother stood beside him, her voice tight and cracking, barely holding together. "She's pregnant," she said. "She carries your child." Her eyes were glassy, her jaw shook as she said it. "She said you are the father." Behind them the villagers watched, some wide-eyed, others whispering, "This man? This monk?" They remembered how he had once helped repair a neighbor's fence without being asked, how he had spoken blessings over newborns, how he had fetched water for the elderly when snow buried the mountain path. Now that trust crumbled, shattered in an instant by one name. All eyes turned to him. Would he deny it? Would he fight? Would he demand justice? He said none of those things. He simply looked at them all, the broom still in his hand, and spoke 3 words. "Is that so?" The words fell into the silence like a feather, and landed like a boulder. No anger, no pleading, no explanation. The girl's father spat. "You're finished." And with that, they left. The temple emptied. The doors stopped opening. Pilgrims stopped coming. The path to the garden grew over with moss. Children stopped laughing near its walls. Offerings stopped arriving at the gate. Where there was once reverence, now there was avoidance, suspicion, cold eyes, quiet curses. But Hakuin, he remained. Each morning he swept the garden. He bowed to the wind. He poured tea. He did not explain. He simply lived. And that became its own mystery. Why didn't he defend himself? Was it guilt? Or was it something else, something harder to name? Seasons passed. And when the child was born, a boy, there were no blessings, no songs. No one came to celebrate. The girl stayed hidden. The father and mother, shoulders heavy with shame, made the journey up the mountain themselves. They came in silence, carrying the newborn wrapped in a worn blue cloth. No shouting this time, no accusations, just quiet footsteps on mossy stones. They found Hakuin kneeling beneath the plum tree, pouring tea for no one. The mother placed the child gently beside him. "He's yours now," she said. Her voice was thin, like paper left too long in the sun. The father's mouth stayed shut, but his eyes were red. No blessing, no apology, just the wind moving in the branches. And then they turned and left, never looking back. The boy learned to walk among the stones of the temple garden, learned to laugh at the wind, learned to reach his arms up and call for Hakuin, not with fear, not with confusion, but with trust. He called everything leaf, no matter what it was. Clouds, birds, rain, all of it, leaf. And always, when he reached out, Hakuin came. He cradled the boy, fed him, tucked him against his chest beneath the blossoming plum tree, never once asking for anything in return. Some villagers softened, not to Hakuin, but to the child. A scarf here, a wooden toy left at the gate. A smile, if briefly. No one spoke what they were starting to suspect. No one said what crept into their minds when they watched Hakuin care for the child with such stillness. And then, 1 year after the lie, came the truth. The girl, now older, sat trembling in front of her parents, hands twisted in her lap. "I lied," she whispered. "It wasn't him." She wept. "It was the butcher's son. I was scared. I didn't know what to say." Her parents didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't move. They simply rose and walked the old path to the temple once more. The dusk was soft, the breeze laced with the scent of pine, and beneath the plum tree they found him. The boy lay sleeping in his lap, one small fist tangled in Hakuin's robe. Above them the blossoms fell again, soft petals drifting in the dying light. The father stopped a few paces away, and in a quiet voice he said, "We were wrong. The child is not yours." Hakuin looked down at the boy, then back at them. And once more he said, "Is that so?" No vengeance, no demand for apology, no gloating, just a kiss on the boy's forehead, a gentle lifting, and the boy was returned to them. He reached back, confused, but Hakuin only bowed. The parents bowed too, and they left. After that night, the temple became quiet again. But it was a different kind of silence. Not the silence of suspicion, not the silence of shame. It was something closer to reverence, or perhaps confusion, or both. Because in the end no one could explain him, not fully. Not how he had stood still in the storm, not how he had loved a child the world insisted was his, not how he had never once spoken in his own defense. And over time, the story became legend. People still asked, did he know the boy wasn't his? Did he believe her at all? Why didn't he say something? Years later, a young student, bold and burning with questions, sat beside Hakuin, older now, quieter still. Master, he asked, why didn't you say anything? When they accused you? When the truth came? Why silence? Hakuin poured 2 cups of tea. Then he said, the world moves like wind through trees. First it praises, then it blames. First it loves, then it scorns. But the tree does not chase the wind. He took a sip, then added, when you stop needing to be seen as right, peace never leaves you. The student sat there, stunned, unsure of what to say. And softly, perhaps not to the student at all, perhaps only to the wind itself, Hakuin spoke once more. Is that so? The master responds to falsehood and truth, bad news and good news, in exactly the same way. Is that so? He allows the form of the moment, good or bad, to be as it is, and so does not become a participant in human drama. If you're new here and you enjoy these animated wisdom stories, subscribe for more. Like and comment, it really helps. And while you wait, watch another story in the playlist.